Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Attainment Podcast. Today, we are continuing our conversation about the impact that marketing makes on attracting venture capital or private equity. Last episode, we tackled this topic from the B2B marketing leader's perspective. Today, we're going to look at it from the other side, from the venture capital and private equity perspective. So we can have that side tell us what they are looking for in terms of a company's marketing and what sorts of qualitative and quantitative things they're looking for. And so for that, we're lucky to have here with us Narbe Alexandrian, who's founder and CEO of Define Capital. He's also a professor at the Schulich Business School and has had a long career in various venture capital roles, including his own firm and including a role as venture capitalist at OMERS. So we have someone who knows this topic quite well and does this very actively in terms of looking at a company and looking at their marketing, both qualitatively and quantitatively. So thanks for coming on, Narbe. Really glad to have you with us. It's a topic that isn't explored very much, and a lot of marketers don't realize the impact that they make in terms of resonating with investors like yourself. So I thought it would be great to have you on and tell us from your perspective as to what types of things you are looking for in a company's marketing and how it impacts your decisions. So over to you, Narbe, for a deeper introduction about yourself. I think it'll be great for the audience to hear a little bit more about you.
Thanks, David. And I'm super grateful and excited to be on the podcast. Bit of background on myself, and you gave a great Coles notes of it. So by trade, I'm a CPA, practiced, 15, 20 years ago at this point in time. And really, that was a great foundation for me in terms of understanding financials, which then teased me up for the rest of the journey in my career. So I'll take you through that pretty quickly. When I was in accounting, I guess when I was getting my CPA time, like the articling time, I never actually did audit or tax or anything like that. My specialty was management consulting. I worked at Deloitte Consulting, or now called Monitor Deloitte. And then I moved over to the M&A side at Deloitte as well, working a lot with private equity firms as they were buying companies, helping them understand what they were buying. So doing a lot of consulting work there. I got the startup bug in the early 2010s in Toronto at the time, where I'm from. There wasn't much in terms of VC or startup culture as there is now in 2024, 2025. And so at the time, it was slim pickings. There's probably 2 VC firms that were national. There was a bunch of smaller ones, which were very tiny, single operator, single GPL focus. And so I wanted to dive into the software world. So I joined a company called Firmex. It was a virtual data room company. At the time, it was a pretty tiny company, not servicing any of the bigger players in the M&A world or the legal world. And I came in as a manager of corporate strategy, working with the CEO to kind of veer ourselves or steer ourselves towards certain verticals that we wanted to be good in, legal and a few others. At a point in time, I left the company, and I started working with Mars Innovation a bit with their cohort of companies in the UTEST program, which is the University of Toronto early stage technology. And that was predominantly with PhDs and postdoctorates at University of Toronto who had come up with academic papers that they wanted to commercialize. At the time, little did I know that a lot of the folks that I was talking to from the UTEST side ended up being Jeff Hinton, who's known as the godfather of AI, some of his students, or what they call disciples, where they were coming up with really cool companies like Deep Genomics and a few others. And I was really lucky to have seen them and worked with them. At the same time, I started working a bit with the United Nations. They had a clean tech VC program. It was part of a broader VC program. And one of the early investments that was made through that fund was in Service Titan, at a seed stage investment, which then ended up now is the latest public company to go public through an IPO, valued at billions and billions of dollars. So we were seeing them at the seed, not pre-seed, but seed, between seed and Series A stage. So I got a great glimpse of what VC looks like over there. So I left Firmex. I made myself a consultant there and a contractor so I could take on more time to work on in the VC and investing world. And we invested in a bunch of different companies. We helped companies grow and so forth. In about 2013, 2014, 2013, I joined TELUS briefly. I wanted to get some hardware expertise. At the time, TELUS was doubling down on Internet of Things technologies. If you go back in the telco world in Canada, which is owned by really three large telco companies, Bell, Telus, and Rogers. A lot of their revenue was being driven by mobility. So cell phone plans were very expensive and still are in Canada, but data plans were very expensive back then in the 2000s. And then they kind of started coming down in the 2010s. So knowing that it was coming down, TELUS, their focus was really on how do we get sensor-based technologies? How do we put SIM cards in traffic lights and monitor them through software? How do we get SIM cards in trucks and make sure that they're going to the right location and are properly optimized for route? And these are a lot of things that we did. So we were putting in, I think we put in like 150 million SIM cards over a number of years into different products. And a lot of it was low bandwidth, few kilobytes every day. But the sheer volume of it made it a great business. We grew that business from zero to about 200 million of revenue over the course of 4 years. But I was only there for the first few bits of it. At around 2013, 2014 timeframe, I got an opportunity to join OMERS Ventures, which was initially if you asked me when I was 21, 22, that was probably my dream place to work because I was building up my entire career to go there. They were the juggernaut of venture capital in Canada, largest venture capital fund in Canada, backed by one of the largest pension funds, OMERS in Canada, which services municipal employees. And so I joined as an associate. If I'm to backtrack a bit, once I left school, I started TAing. I started working and teaching labs to students as well. And I became the youngest prof of the Schulich School of Business at the age of 24. And I've been teaching there ever since. So I've been there for 13 years now, teaching a variety of courses from accounting to finance to entrepreneurship, which is what I do now. So that gives me a lot of like going back to the roots and foundations and talking to students. It's a great talent pipeline as well. So fast forward to when I was at OMERS, I joined as an associate. Within 4 years, I was promoted to partner. And we did a number of deals during that period of time. I think OMERS is best known for its Shopify investment, where it came in on the Series A at a few $1 million of valuation. Now the company's post-public $60 billion company. So that was the claim to fame, but it made a number of solid investments in that period of time. Xanadu, which is a quantum computing company, was one of the companies that I helped out with. But there's other ones like Jobber and Rover and Hopper, a number of them that were really successful. So once I made partner, I was really excited about it. But 6 months before that, I was already getting headhunted for a job. The cannabis industry in Canada was legalized from the Prime Minister's perspective. The retail sales hadn't started yet. So there's a brief amount of time where you could jump into an industry. And what I thought was really cool about it, not really being a consumer in cannabis at all, but what I really thought was cool was we're going from an industry that has $0 of revenue to an industry where it's going to be $1 billion plus industry. And there's no question that it was going to be $1 billion plus industry. The only question was, well, how does that look? How is it going to look? Where do you bet on that to make the big bucks? I originally joined the VC and PE arm of Canopy Growth, the largest cannabis producer at the time. Within a few months, we spun it out. We took it public through a reverse takeover, and I became president and CEO of that new company. And I was president and CEO of this public company for 4 years. Prior to what we had 3 change of controls over 16 months between 2021 and 2022, which by the last one of it, I left the company. Now we're in 2022. I've had experience in software, in hardware, in VC, in my own VC fund, and we did PE as well in that as well. So I took a brief time out and I said, you know what? I have the luxury of time now because we've had some financial success personally. I wanted to get back to the roots of investing. So I spent 4 months just digging into going to the library every day. So we drop off our kids at school. We go to the library every day, and I'd sit down and my thesis was I want to read every book that a billionaire investor has written, and that was like my criteria. You have to be a billionaire investor in private equity or VC or even hedge funds. I'd like to take a look at it as well, and I'll read your book. And my thesis there was the New York Times bestsellers that are out there. They make anywhere from 100,000 to 10 million on a New York Times bestseller book. And The 10 million probably goes to Michael Lewis of Liar's Poker or Moneyball or Flash Boys, very famous writer. And the 100,000 probably goes to that first time New York Times bestseller that by luck got there but didn't have a good package. And I looked at the quantum of how much you make and how hard it is to write a book and how much vulnerability is involved in it. And I looked at these billionaires and I said, well, they're not doing it for the money. There's no way that they need to. They can make interest off of their investments in an easier way than doing that. I said, there must be some altruistic reason why they write these books. So I sat there and I read books from Peter Lynch, Ray Dalio, George Soros, Andreessen Horowitz, Peter Thiel, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Phil Fisher, a number of them. And I read 24 books over 4 months, try to understand the psyche of them. And I fell in love with Warren Buffett's philosophies, which I noticed were consistent across some of these investors. Discipline, find value, don't chase price, who cares about what things are worth. Think about the earnings potential and the revenue that comes out of that. And it just changed my whole landscape from VC to like really hardcore PE. And I can explain that too, if you want. And so at that point in time, I decided, you know what, I'm not ready to hang it up yet. I want to get back into the grind. So I started Defined Capital. Defined Capital's goal is to create a home for companies that are looking, technology and software companies that are looking to exit. And we noticed that there's a couple of themes that really drove me to do this. One is there's a huge set of baby boomers that are looking to retire. There's something like $2 trillion in Canada that's going to exchange hands in 10 years. And there's about $27 trillion in the US that are going to, of small businesses only, that are going to exchange hands in the next 30 years. And I said, well, this is like once in a generational thing where we have that many people that need succession planning on their businesses. And the second thing I noticed was over my time in tech, I saw technology adoption just go all the way straight down to that blue ocean, those smaller companies out there. And I was noticing that every niche that we were looking at had some sort of software in it. So I put those two things together and said, I wanted to create a private equity vehicle where we would gobble up these smaller software companies. We never sell them. We'd hold on to them forever, permanent capital, and we'd get a cash flow from them over a period of time, but also create a home for them where the founders who had been there for 10, 20, 30 years could give it to us knowing that we never resell it to a larger private equity firm. And that brings me to today. We've done 2 acquisitions. We're on the verge of doing our 3rd one. We raised a bunch of capital in March of last year. So over 9 months, we've built a great business, and we've raised a chunk of money as well. And we're out there looking for companies to acquire.
Amazing. Speaking of philanthropy and the altruistic aspects of some of these billionaire investors, appreciate your altruism as well, Narbe, in making time for this. It's interesting. You mentioned reading some of the works of, for example, Warren Buffett. You said that your perspective and your mindset changed from more of a VC perspective to a PE perspective. I'm guessing probably your perspective of marketing and the impact of marketing, that the impact marketing makes on your decisions probably shifted as well in terms of some of the things you look for. I know in software, when it comes to founders pitching their software businesses, marketing plays a big impact because in many cases, they're not generating as much cash flow as a PE would want to. So there's a lot of marketing involved in those software businesses. So I want to dive into that. So would you agree that SaaS businesses, that marketing is sort of the qualitative aspects and are very, very important and crucial in a SaaS?
Absolutely. I think when you look at marketing plans, you have to, what we look for as investors are future-proof marketing plans where you've done all these things to be successful in the past. Can you demonstrate how these current strategies can scale as the company grows? So we look at it from the perspective of if David, if you were to start a company tomorrow, you're at $0 of revenue. That 0 to 1 is a battle. It's a very different battle than the battle of 1 million to 10 million of ARR. And that's a different battle than the 10 million to 50 million and a different one from 50 to 100 and the different one beyond there. And at times, like as investors, we see that there's different types of CEOs that are very good at different pieces. And there's other ones like Zuckerberg or Musk that can rediscover themselves and redevelop themselves and get to that next level as the company grows. Whenever we're looking at the marketing plans, we're trying to see like what you've done in the past. Is it scalable into the future, or do we need to come up with a different strategy? So you want to double click on it as much as you can to understand how that marketing plan has been created.
Interesting. And so you mentioned one of the VC success stories you shared was that clean tech company where you found them pre-seed, Series A, and then they eventually IPO'd, I believe, valued at billions of dollars. What were some of the things that you saw from a marketing perspective within that company that gave you that conviction?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that really stood out. And I saw that at the tail end. So I wasn't necessarily involved in that actual deal itself directly. And what I saw that was, and I've seen this across a number of companies as well. So it's not just them. It's that the first thing was they had proper unit economics. Like they knew how to make money either now or in the future with a few tweaks or a bit of volume on every single unit of business that came in. And the second thing that they're really good at was understanding how to really connect with the customer. So that's kind of one of the things that we at Define Capital preach all the time is this customer-centric view. Like you always want to be talking to the customer, even at the beginning when you're about to create a brand new company from scratch. So at your seed, pre-seed stage, all the way up to your bigger company, you want to have campaigns, you want to be geared towards getting the voice of customer at all times. And that's kind of like a mechanism that's shared between marketing, sales, and product management, where together they come together and say, let's go talk to the customer. Is our messaging resonating with them? Is the product resonating with them? What kind of feedback can they give us? What can we understand about how they use the product that can help us create the next generation of product? From a marketing perspective, you're trying to see, are these the type of people that we want to create a prototype or a customer prototype of this is what our customer looks like, so that we can rinse and repeat and campaign towards them. And it all comes together. And I think a lot of people, and it's a scary thing to do, but a lot of people don't like talking to customers because they don't like hearing negative thoughts, or they think they're bothering them, or they get freaked out when a customer doesn't want to talk to them because they're busy in their own lives. So then they start really focusing on secondary research, and not to rip on secondary research, I think has a time and place, but that primary research of rolling up your sleeves and really talking to customers, it makes or breaks the thesis of what you're trying to build. And the quicker you get to that, the less mistakes you'll make and the less money that'll cost. To quote a famous VC, Paul Graham, he said, you kind of need to do it. You kind of need to go and create a business as fast as you can with as little capital as you can. Talking to customers, I think, is one of the best examples of how to do that.
Fantastic. And so it sounds like customer centricity and a company who is very well connected to the voice of the customers is a crucial element for you guys. What are some things that indicate that a company is very customer centric? Are there some qualitative things, some quantitative things that indicate that to you?
So quantitatively, I would say there's three things that I'd like to take a look at. Let's say four. The first one is your customer acquisition costs. We want that to be low because the more you know about your customer, the lower you can take that customer acquisition cost, generally speaking, because you understand how to get to them in a very neat way. And when it's low relative to revenue, it kind of signals a good return on investment on your marketing spend. And it signals that your marketing team knows like how to talk to that customer. I think the second thing I would look at is lifetime value. A high lifetime value indicates that you're retaining customers properly. There's recurring revenue potential, and that's critical for both venture capital and private equity whenever we look at a software business. The third piece, which I think is one of the most important ones, is customer churn. And customer churn varies whether you're in B2C. In B2C, there's way more churn because it's coming straight out of people's wallet. They come in and out of a company very quickly. So if you look at Instagram, which is one of the most successful B2C companies in the world, their churn rates are in the 30s and 40% range, which is in the B2B world would be like crazy high, but in the B2C world is a great metric. In the B2B world, which is a lot of where a private equity and VC investment is geared towards, the lower the churn rate, the more healthier the business. So at Defined Capital, we're looking for businesses that have 10% or lower churn per year. Ideally, companies that have 5% or lower churn per year, because we know that it costs money to get a customer. And if you lose that customer, now you're not only paying customer acquisition costs for the next new customer, but you're also trying to fill that gap of the customers that you've lost. And you have to pay for that as well. And then the last thing that we really look at is the net promoter score. And that really tells us whether or not the customers like the product. Is the brand recognized? Does it signify market leadership and potential for long-term growth? And we use that kind of lightly because I know like NPS can be a bit gimmicky, but it also gives us a good understanding of how well the business is. One other thing that just came to mind as well, we kind of, from an accounting perspective, we always like to look at accounts receivable as a metric to understand how sticky the product is. If you take the example of a hydro business, like keeping your lights on in your office, there's no chance you're going to be late on that payment because you don't want to go on their bad books. You don't want them ever to cut power off. Imagine they cut power off in your office. There'd be no way for you to do anything. And then you think of another product where it's kind of a nice to have, but it's not necessarily needed. You get the bill. You're like humming and hawing on when to pay for it. It's okay if you forget about it for a few weeks and you get some sort of a notice, you'll pay it down. And those are two distinct things. One is a need to have, hydro. One is a nice to have, which isn't something that's mission critical. And so when we look at accounts receivable, we try to gain an understanding of what type of a business is this for our customers. Are they paying on time or are they spinning their wheels on paying for it? And if they're paying on time, then it shows that not with churn, low churn, they're paying on time. It shows that your customers love the product. They can't let it go. But if we see the opposite, it kind of shows that there's some cracks in the product. Can this withstand the next economic cycle? Those are all questions that come to our mind and that we all not only have to prove to ourselves, but our investment committees that are going to challenge us on those topics.
Very interesting. And it sounds like these quantitative metrics that indicate customer centricity, I'm guessing especially so retention and NPS, and this accounts receivable one is a very unique approach that I haven't heard before, but that's also very interesting. It seems that these are also you mentioned earlier that you are looking for companies with a scalable, repeatable, reliable marketing engine that's also predictable. And I'm guessing that these are some of the metrics that you're looking for when assessing that repeatable, scalable marketing engine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Amongst others, but these are like kind of the main ones that we really focus on. And the ones that if they don't look good, someone on your investment committee is going to challenge them and you have to explain why they don't look good or what they're trying to do differently, and make a case for it.
I find it very interesting that the metrics that indicate customer centricity also indicate marketing success. That's I think there's a big lesson in there. What qualitative things do you look for when you're trying to gauge customer centricity of a company?
Qualitatively, I mean, we look at all the reviews that we can. So if there's reviews on G2, Capterra, Google reviews, depending on what the business does, we try to read a lot of them. We try to synthesize it. So we generally always have like a junior staff member of our VC or private equity firm just digging in on those and trying to get an understanding of how customers are writing about it. Depending on the size of the investment, we try to sometimes talk to customers. In the PE world, absolutely, we talk to customers. In the VC world, it depends on the stage of the company. Like there's no customer to talk to at the seed stage, but if you're a Series B, Series C, then there are customers to talk to. And we want to generally understand like what their buyer journey was, what like if they looked at any other competitors, why they chose this company, why they stick with the company. And we try to understand like, is this like a mission critical company or is this like a nice to have? Could you live without it, or is it absolutely part of the plumbing of the building that you can't get rid of? So we do our own customer questionnaires and customer discussions. We typically ask the company in a later stage of due diligence, we typically have a list of the key customers. I'll ask the company, can you give us contacts for 3 customers or 5 customers, 3 to 5? And they'll give you the 3 to 5 customers. We know that those are probably the best customers you have. They have the best relationship with you. So then we'll say, all right, this is great. Thank you for that. But can we get this other 3 or 5 that we randomly pick or we pick because of size? And we say, can we get contacts into them? And that's kind of when sometimes the excuses come about. Oh, like I wouldn't really talk to that one. We're in a really dicey situation because they didn't like this feature and they're thinking about going to the competitor. And then you kind of get to know a bit more about what's going on behind the scenes. But that's probably the best way to really test to see if the marketing, if the product, the solution really resonates with the customer, is by talking to them and getting straight to it.
Interesting. And you mentioned for a seed stage company or maybe very early stage Series A companies, they don't have as many customers. They either don't have customers or they have a very small sample size of customers. What would you look at to indicate customer centricity and a deep understanding of the customer for those companies? Would it be things like their product narrative, their product positioning, their product messaging, the product research and customer research that they've done? What else would you look for?
So I'd say all of those for sure. I think the one that really resonates with me is this company that we looked at almost 10 years ago now, and the company was doing a sort of, it was commercializing the whole review process for dentists. That's what it was doing. That's his primary vertical was. So you go to the dentist and you get your teeth filled or teeth cleaned or whatever it was. And they created a product where the dentist, the receptionist would then ping you an SMS that would say, hey, can you fill out a quick survey and provide a Google review on it? And through SMS, you'd provide your Google review and it goes straight on Google, which was like a very cool thing. I think Google stopped that later on, but at the time, it was a really neat way to just increase the Google reviews that you had, so long as you were getting a good score. And so that the team came to us to pitch us at the seed stage, and they had some early traction. I think they had like 10 dentists, but it was like nowhere near to be profitable because it was a very cheap product. And what I really liked about it is they came in armed with like 100-person survey. So they had surveyed 100 dentists to get results. So every time we'd ask them a question on, well, how much would someone pay for this product? And they say they'd pay, I don't know, $2 a month or $5 a month. And be like, well, how do you know that? They'd be like, oh, well, we asked 100 customers and they said 75% of them said they'd be $5. 20% said they pay $2 and the rest of them said they wouldn't pay for it. So we kind of got that range out of it. Every time we ask them a question, they'd go and say, well, we surveyed potential customers and they told us this. And not just like we surveyed 5, we surveyed 100. And we have the data to back it up. We have the data to show it. And so as a VC, you want that stuff, because I think what really irks me and my pet peeve is if I'm meeting you for 30 minutes on your pre-seed deal or seed deal, or even now in the private equity phase that I'm in, if I can stump you within 30 minutes with a question that you don't have an answer to, well, there's probably bigger things that we're worried about. And sometimes you see companies, CEOs on the private equity side that we see now, or even back in my VC days, where you'd ask them question after question after question. And then by the time you get to your 10th question, you see this like little grin on their face, which is like their stress levels have come down because they finally like understand that all that hard work and effort that they've put into, there's no question that you can ask them that they haven't thought of it. And you kind of get this sense of like, and nobody ever says this, of course, but you get this sense of like the entrepreneur sitting on the other side being like, are you effing kidding me? Like, you think that you can ask me a question within 30 minutes that I haven't thought of? Do you know how much sleep I've lost over similar questions to this? Like, I am so deep in the weeds in my industry that you showing up for 30 minutes, VC or private equity guy, there's no way you're going to stump me on my own business, on my own industry, on my competitive landscape, on my value proposition. There's no way, because I live and breathe this problem day to day. Like, I'm saying this with like goosebumps on me as I'm saying this, because when you hear one of those pitches, you just walk out the room, you're like, someone's going to invest in this company. I hope it's us. If it's not us, we have to have a damn good reason why we didn't do it, because we know they're going to be invested later on. And there are a few of those companies that we've seen that we kind of backed out of, and then they ended up having gargantuan exits as well. So I never, through my history of just seeing this for, I don't know, 15 years now, I never discount the entrepreneurs' drive, hustle, persistence of understanding the problem that they're trying to solve. And when you find people who like live and breathe the company and the problem that they're facing, that is a no-brainer in terms of the fact that they have investment potential. Then you have to go to the quantitative side and just make sure that the numbers jive and they're actually building something that customers want.
Very interesting. It's interesting that when you see a founder that really understands their customer at a deep level. It's interesting that you guys are almost like, here, take my money, and asking yourself, like you said, if we're not going to invest in this company, we better have a good reason. That's very, very interesting. That just goes to show the power of being well connected and intimate with your customer, having that customer intimacy, being very well connected to the voice of the customer, doing your research, knowing things inside out, like the palm of your hand. Very interesting. What are some other, so you mentioned a few very important intangible things that you look for. What are some other intangibles that might make an impact on you?
From a marketing perspective or just generally?
From a marketing perspective.
I think a lot of what we see in pitches and when we look at businesses is driven by marketing. I think when you're looking at a company, them do you really focus on just the R&D alone? What the questions, understanding the technical debt and the tech stack and all that is really important. Don't get me wrong, but it's not like a lot of times you're trying to understand like how well do we understand does the company understand the customer? Going back to that point, and marketing is like the prime example of that. Like when I used to work at TELUS, and I was juggling between white labeling products, some venture stuff, some corp dev M&A type work. My group was actually marketing, because in a big company like that, and this is similar to CPG companies, marketing is what drives the decisions, because you see the numbers, you see the customer, and you're trying to match them together by creating product or trying to manage the message of the product to the customer that resonates the best way. And so I think a lot of tech companies know that. I think behind the scenes, they know that their marketing team and their sales team together, their sales and marketing function, or their go-to-market function, we like to call it these days, is the prime group that drives towards both making the business better, but also bringing the investment dollars in. And so qualitatively, like you want to see like who the team is made up of and how much do they care about it. So I don't like, from a VC perspective, I didn't like going into businesses and taking a look at them where they didn't have proper marketing people in there. They didn't have a clear leader. The leader, sometimes you would see like the marketing person was part-time and they were working on their own business on the side. I didn't like that. I wanted to see someone that was very focused on that and had the credentials and was properly incentivized from a base pay, short-term incentive plan, long-term incentive plan to get there. And what kind of a team do they create underneath it? And were they going for more social media type clicks, or were they going for a bigger strategy of let's get in front of our customer, let's resonate with them, let's let the product speak for itself, let's use testimonials, let's break down our customers between different ages, different income levels, and understand what really drives them. And the more they got into the brains of their typical customer, the more that resonated with me and the more I liked it. On the PE side, though, it's a bit different. Like we're always looking for value that we can add to the company. And a lot of times when we look at companies that have great market share in their niche, they have high retention rates, low churn, customer acquisition cost is very, very low. They typically are companies where they have a great engineering team, product is fantastic, but because they're small, it's because they haven't really created a proper go-to-market function. And there we see opportunity, because once you take over the company, you want to do something with it to move the needle. So that's where we want to invest in creating a proper marketing team and creating a proper tech stack for how you track marketing efforts in real time, and then trying to understand how we can use that to leverage that to grow the company later on. So it's a very different lens, but I mean, at the end of the day, marketing is driven by people. So you have to really understand the people that you're going to be working with and are going to be focused on that in order to understand where this is going to go.
Very interesting. And so you said the go-to-market is a very key component. And well, I guess it is, because when I look at a lot of pitch decks, they only have, slides, because you got to keep the slides short for that half an hour that they have. But at least one or two of the slides are usually all about the go-to-market function.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is like sales focused, to be honest, at that point in time, especially like those early stage companies, because they'll just work on their pipeline. This is what my pipeline looks like. These are the companies we talk to. These are companies that are we're in discussions with right now. But I want to get to understand a bit more of that, right? So when companies give us a forecast, whether it's PE or VC, and they say next year we're going to grow 100%, then 200%, then 300%, you want to double click on that. And this is where marketing comes in. I want to double click on that and say, okay, well, historically, what's your conversion rate from a demo to a customer? Okay. And what's your conversion rate from a qualified lead coming to your website to a demo? And then what's your conversion rate from a lead to a qualified lead? Okay, so we noticed that 2% of your leads that come into your marketing channels end up doing a demo, and then 50% of them end up buying your product. Now, let's look at your 100% growth rate. So you're going to double those amount of leads. How are you going to do that? And you're going to triple it the year after. How are you going to do that? Walk us through what that looks like. What are you going to do differently that you haven't done in the past? And a lot of times it stumps them, because I think what's missing in those scenarios where you stump the CEO or the founders is that they don't have a clear cohesion between your sales, your marketing, your product management function that also relays to engineering. And without the pure cohesion, you have your finance person coming up with these fictitious financials that, quite frankly, like, they don't have any data behind it. And then your marketing team is like, well, I don't even know we're going to triple in 2 years. Yeah, I guess we need to hire a bunch of people. And then they come up with like some fabricated excuse of what it is and what it takes to do that. And so the ones that I really like are the ones that are really tied in together, that they'll be like, yeah, I mean, we want to see how we're going to triple. Let's double click on that. We haven't launched into this. We haven't done this. We haven't gone and done that. And we think if we do these, we can increase our leads by this much, and that can trickle down. And as well, the sales function needs to be worked on a bit. These are things we want to add: some more BDR staff, a clear VP of sales, and that's going to increase the conversion there. And we think by doing those, we're going to get to that number. And then when you see that, sometimes you just get this sigh of relief where you're like, okay, you're thinking about it the way I'm thinking about it, which is like, everyone has to work together on creating this thing. And it's not just the business people that pitch the company. It's the marketing that drives the leads, that gives us the sales, that drives the product. Customers use the product, they complain, they like it, whatever. That goes to product management. That goes to engineering. They create the new features. Marketing then advertises those new features, brings in leads, sales closes on them. And it's just like the cycle that's going. And if you see that all together, it's something that you know that even if you don't invest in it because of whatever reason you have, it's investable because they're actually thinking about all of these things.
Fascinating. And it's interesting that you outlined the impact of alignment between product, marketing, sales, because that's actually a very big topic for us on the marketing side. I went to the Product Marketing Alliance Summit about a month ago here in Toronto. It's a conference for product marketers. We had probably at least two of the talks were about this topic, creating alignment either between product and marketing, or between marketing and sales, or between all three. So that is also a theme for us on the marketing side. It's actually one of the biggest challenges as well, is creating that alignment. But what you just said just goes to show that even though it's challenging on the marketing side, we really need to work on it.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that comes down to your C levels. So in companies where I've seen it work, one of the things I've noticed is like they would group the sales, marketing, and product people in and around the same area. And your engineering team would kind of be like a silo because they're just a different breed of individuals. And so your marketing team would be in an earshot of the salespeople that are talking about the product on a demo. And they could hear those demos as they're happening. They could hear like the salespeople umming and ahhing when they get rebuttals. So they kind of understand like what's working and what's not. And then the product management team would be right there, or at least an individual from product management would be right there to listen in on the sales calls as well. So then from the sales call, where you're actually going in front of a customer and you're talking to them about the product, you get a good understanding of what works, what doesn't, what competitors they use, what they don't. And the marketing team would just be able to, even if it's not like a direct feedback or something that you got out of those calls, they would get like this halo effect of understanding like if the messaging is working or if it's not. And your product management team would understand like what features did we not have that made that prospective customer turn that down? What do we need to fix? What does our competitor have that we don't have? And they would take that and they relay that to engineering and say, hey, engineering, what's the next features you're going to bring? Hey, move this one up 2 notches on the priority list, because lately we've been getting a lot of people talking about that, or competitors are doubling down on talking about how we don't have that, and that's something that our customers want. And so it is in the hands of the C-level to create that cohesion. And that's what you want to see, because I think it's much easier to create silos of these things and say, marketing, just bring in leads. And they'll start to bring in like crappy leads that don't go anywhere. Salespeople go do it, and they're like, well, we can't hit our quota because we're just not getting proper leads. And everyone's coming up with an excuse to sell the other group off. But when you put them all in the same room, they're kind of working together. You force them to have meetings. At least the leaders have meetings with each other, talking about what works and what doesn't. They go out for coffees together, go out for lunches together. And the more culture that you can focus, and culture is everything in these businesses, as you know, especially when you're trying to grow that fast. The better the culture is, the better the results are going to be.
Fascinating. And, a lot of my network are in product marketing. And so I think they'll be interested to hear how important this alignment is from the VC side, because that's a lot of times what product marketing does is it drives that alignment between those three groups. They're kind of the interface that allows those three groups to connect. So that'll be very, very interesting for them to hear. And this could be why a lot of, especially SaaS companies, within the past 5 years, like the product marketing manager role has absolutely blown up in the past few years. Everyone's looking for one.
Absolutely. And it's because it's never been harder to compete. On one side, you're having proliferation and adoption of technology, which is fantastic. But on the other side, there's just more competition. So you have to be able to weed out why you're different than them. I'd add one more thing, and that's both in the VC world and PE world, we always force ourselves to go visit the company on site. And we joke around. Well, the reason we do it is because just to make sure the walls are there and the company's actually active and there's what they've told us is real. But we want to kind of see that culture of how people are working together. So if you're a founder, whether you're in marketing or you're in the C-level and you have VCs coming to visit you, this is like the day where you tell everyone to like dress well, not too well, so it shows that you're fabricating something, but come on time. Everyone needs to be in the office, especially during the time when we have investors walking through. Talk to each other more, like do the things that make us look good when investors come in, because they're not only judging us on the four walls we have around us, but also how we interact with each other inside those four walls. And it's not about like, oh, we have cereal in our break room free for everybody, but it's more so, where is everyone located? How much of your group is remote? How much of it is there? I'm old, call me old school, but I'm a huge proponent of having people in the office together, because that water cooler talk, you can't get that through Slack. You can't get that through Zoom meetings. It's a bit different. Like during COVID, when I was running my private equity and VC fund, public company, everyone was remote. We were forced to be it. And sometimes you want to ask like a 10-second question. And I think this is before Slack had that huddle feature that they have now. But you'd have to like book a 30-minute Zoom with someone for like a 5-minute conversation, when in real life, you could have just walked by their desk and just asked them the question, got that answer. Instead, I had to book something half a day later, go and sit down, and I would just slow the entire process down. So I'm a big proponent of having everyone together and have everyone working together. And I think it's crucial to be competitive within this world.
Yeah, when I think back to a few of my experiences at tech startups, the ones that did very well, both in terms of creating a great product, happy customers, generating revenue, and also getting investors in, we had the product sale. First of all, we had the marketing and sales under one function, under a revenue function. And then we had products sitting right next to us. And even during COVID, we found ways to facilitate real-time collaboration as well, to keep those three groups very, very tight. You touched on another intangible is the cohesion of those functions at a company, which going in and looking at them and seeing their dynamic is a good way to see it qualitatively. Just back to one of the other qualitative aspects, you mentioned earlier the value proposition. And, I think when I look at a lot of tech startups, they have a great product. And when the founder tells me what the product is, I'm like, wow, this is great. This is going, like, I get it. I understand it. This is going to be great. This product has so much potential. But then when I go to their website, I read their website, and if you read just the website, you wouldn't know what it is that they do, or the benefit or the value that they bring. And I suspect that this might become an even bigger problem in the year ahead with the proliferation of all these AI startups, so much innovation happening in AI. So can you tell us what is a good value proposition?
I think, okay, so one comment on the website piece before I go there is I think the website is an incredibly strong tool that you have. And like you, I've seen a lot of companies where I go on the website, I have no clue what you do. I know the industry you're in, but the words you're using there's too much jargon. You're too high level. Like, what problem are you actually trying to solve? I think the value propositions that really stick to me are the ones that are very direct. We do this for our customers very well. We're the leader in this segment. And the more accurate, the more precise, specific you can be in terms of what problems you solve, the better it is. Now, I know a lot of the reason why companies fail at the website piece is because they want to say everything that they do. And they're like, this is my website. I want to be able to talk about all my features, my specs, all the things that we do. And I think what you miss out on is that simplicity is really valuable when it comes to your landing page. And your landing page is very important. Your bounce rate's important, the traffic you bring in, and how you convert onto it. And the more basic you can become, just clearly articulate in one sentence or two what it is that you do, for who you do it for, and show areas of testimonials, case studies, a list of customers that you can put logos on for, that really resonates. What we've noticed, and I'm sure your audience knows way more about this than I do, because I'm an investor, so I know a bit of everything, but not really good at anything other than the investing part. There's different demographics that like different things. So at Define Capital, we own a municipal software business, and we know in the municipal software world, your baby boomers and your millennials look at things differently when it comes to software. Your millennials are interested in how can this make my life more comfortable, and they're okay with implementing technology. When you go to your baby boomer side, I know I'm skipping generations in between, but I'm going to the other extreme. They're kind of really not that tech savvy. They don't really like to add technology to it. There's a way they've been doing it for 10, 20, 30 years that they just don't want to rip out. And what really drives them are testimonials, case studies. Tell me that my neighboring municipality is doing this, and it's more likely that I'll do it because I don't want to get left behind. So there, our testimonials are more driven towards, hey, baby boomer, you're missing out on what you should be doing because of this. Look at what your neighboring municipality is doing. Look how we helped them. Look at how they reduced their staff turnover or reduced their headcount because of all the automation and help we gave them. Look at how much money they're saving or how the revenue went up, whatever the thing is that you're doing. And for that older generation, that's incredibly valuable to them. For the newer generation, it's more about how can you make my life easier? And knowing those two differences and knowing who you're actually going after can really take your business to that next level, which I'm sure everybody in your audience knows already. But it's something that we double click on as well in the VC world and the PE world, is to say, like, do you actually focus on those? Like, how are you getting that messaging out? What's the average age of your buyer? What's the average age of your user? Sometimes those things are different. Your buying group's different than the actual users. And what are you doing to get testimonials from them to then lure the laggards in your niche out of their processes and into this software world?
Very interesting. So value prop has to be simple, to the point, and really explain well what it is that you do well. And it has to indicate that you understand who it's doing this for. Is it what the persona is? Is it a millennial? Is it a boomer? And really understand what makes them tick. And you also mentioned competitors. It has to buy why you're better than the alternatives. Again, the product marketers are going to love this. It sounds like competitive intel is also a very, very key part. So when you, as an investor, look at a company or talk to their founder or their marketing people, I'm guessing you really want to make sure that they understand their competitors almost as intimately as they do their customers. Would that be right?
Almost. So it kind of depends on stage. If you're looking at an early stage investment from a VC angle, you want them to be keen on what their competitors do. And I think what you're trying to solve for, what you're trying to figure out is, excuse me, have they really looked at what their competitors are doing? Because a lot of these seed and pre-seed companies, the founders are kind of scared to double click on their competitor base because they're worried that what they're trying to solve, what they've been thinking about, what they've been fantasizing about has already been done. And it's just a feature instead of a platform. And so you're trying to really understand, like, have they done that difficult thing, which is to say, are we just a copycat? Is this novel? Does this exist? Has this been tried? Why hasn't it worked? Answering those difficult questions. When you get to a later stage investment, like even in the PE world here, you're trying to make sure that they have a good grasp of what their competition does. But I wouldn't say it's at the same level as the customer centricity, because I don't like businesses that are too focused on competition and not enough on their customer. I like the ones that are so focused on their customer that they couldn't care less what the competition does, because they know they're winning every single time when they go for a head-to-head battle. And the data shows it. So screw what the competitor is doing. We don't want to be them. We're the leader. They're the followers. And there's other companies that don't do that. They do the opposite. They're like so keen on what the competitor, they're chasing. So all they're doing is they're always N-1 of where the competitor is. They're always behind. They're always trying to come up with this new feature because the competitor did that. And that competitor did that. I'm going to do that too. And so they never really become like their own independent, self-sufficient product that's leading in a certain spot. So you want them to focus on competitors, but you don't want them to paralyze themselves with competitive analysis. I would like them to rather focus much more on the customer side, because that's who is going to pay their bills, instead of on the competition.
Very interesting. That's good to know, because the competitive intel specialized role has also taken off the past few years, but perhaps depending on the stage that they're in and depending on whether they're the category leader or if it's a very tight race, maybe they don't want to go overboard there. But like you said, there are scenarios where you do want to have a look at your no, but you also touched earlier on, also depending on the stage of the company, you touched on the fact that in the early stages, a lot of companies, they don't hire a full-time marketing person. They might hire a part-time person who's not purely focused on that company, on the problem they're solving, on the customer that they're serving. But these early stage companies, they often have limited budgets. So they can't afford to go and hire a CMO or hire a senior marketing person. So what would you recommend those companies do? What would you recommend that they find as an alternative? Should they go to agencies? Should they just ask for investment earlier and get that senior marketing person? What should they do in that scenario?
Yeah, so it's a great question, because I wouldn't say I don't really focus on the scenarios where I don't have a budget for it, because I don't have a budget for anything, to be honest. I think of the scenarios where if they brought in a full-time marketing leader, full-time marketing person, they wouldn't have enough to do for a full week to week. They can't fill 40 hours of their time. So you don't want to be paying someone to sit there and not do anything, because like organically they've done everything they can and they don't have much of a budget for ads, or no budget for ads. So they're kind of like, all right, well, we're just posting on social and getting customer surveys out and talking to customers, but that's like 2 days of my week. So in those situations, like I totally subscribe to the fractional marketing person. I don't know if it's CMO or if it's director of marketing or whatever. The way I like to do it, I like to bring on, instead of focusing on an agency, let me double click on the agency part. I love agencies because they have a lot of expertise. They've seen a lot of things. Typically, the leaders of those agencies, or the creatives that you talk to, have done it in industry and are now doing it for their client base. So it's a quick fix, because you're getting someone smart to go in there, but they don't really care about your customers the same way as an employee would. So I would say bring someone in fractional at a director role, like if you're looking to hire a CMO, and have them grow into that CMO role. And so it's someone that's fractional for now, and maybe they're doing it for a few companies. And you're saying that person is going to become my CMO once we hit Series A, because now we have the funding to do it, to do advertisements and do more than organic or social content, and we can go into it a bit deeper. But you want to farm that team player, and I'm doing a basketball reference because, as you know, I like basketball. You want to farm that player in minor leagues before you make them into a major league player, by giving them a director role, having them work on the business, see if you like their product, and having a clear path for them to excel and become that CMO role. So a lot of those times, you're not going to hiring that A+ player. You're hiring the A+ player when they're in their 20s and investing in them to get to where they need to get to, so that they become a CMO. They hit their peak right when you need them to hit their peak.
Very interesting. So instead of hiring LeBron James, which you can't afford. You go for, let's say, a potential rookie of the year, or you go and look for a potential sixth man who has that starting lineup potential. Interesting. And speaking of agencies, I think that the advice you just gave, I think, is very helpful for founders because it's a bit of a predicament. So I think that's very, very, very helpful, the guidance that you just provided, and the analogy just makes it easy to remember. When should a company bring in agencies? Because I have seen situations where a startup gets a ton of funding. They get, let's say, I don't know, 10 million. Here's $10 million. Myself, having built marketing teams from ground up, I can tell you it takes time. You got to find the right talent. It takes 2-3 months to find the right person. You got to build the pieces up layer on. Like, you can't just go and hire a marketing team of 20 in a few months. It's really a process to build those pieces. Just like you would build up a sports team. You got to build those pieces slowly over the course of the year. But if a company gets, let's say, $10 million, now their marketing budget has now just gone through the roof and they have all this extra money. What should they be doing with that extra money? Should they go and hire an agency to accelerate things a bit?
It's a good question. I don't think there's a simple answer for every business. I look at the agencies as being a helping hand. So if you're trying to build a team organically and you're like, you know what, it takes time to ramp people up on the product, to find the right people, to accidentally hire the wrong person and find the right person after, all that takes time. And in between, like, I can't miss my goals. Like, the company still needs to grow. Yes, we just got our Series A. Now we're building a real true marketing function. But if it takes us 6 months, we can't tell our investors, yeah, well, we only grew 50%, we're going to grow 100% because it took us half a year to build people. And I think that's where the agencies really come helpful, which is to say, all right, well, we hired someone for product marketing, but we need someone for content generation, but we're still looking for it. Let's rely on our agency for that for now. So I see agencies as like a temporary tool to bring expertise into the picture, knowing that you're going to replace them over time with in-house talent. And that agency's role starts to continuously evolve, where they're doing higher and higher level tasks as time goes on, to the point that at some point in time, their focus is on something completely different than when they started with, because they're evolving as you're evolving internally as well. So that agency relationship between your marketing function and your external outsourcing agency, they come hand in hand. And you never want to rely on just the agency by itself, because now you have platform risk. If they were to jack up their fees one year because they know you rely on them too much, or someone in the agency leaves and you can't do anything about it because it's not your company, or they have a bigger client that now you become second or third tier client, you don't want those situations. So you have to really build internally in order to make it more resilient and scalable. And I would say, like, from a VC PE perspective, like, we don't really care the agencies that you work with, in a sense. Like, they're not you, they're not part of you. They're overpaying for them versus someone internally as well. So we give much more value to the team and culture you built internally than we do on some agency relationship and what the agency does for you.
Gotcha. Interesting. But just curious, if you were to give a company $10 million, would you be okay if at the same time as building their team, they go ahead and hire an agency just to even though they are overpaying for them? Would you be okay with them doing that if it drives results and if it helps them accelerate things a bit?
Yeah, to go to that point, exactly, like, absolutely, because you still have to hit the goals that you have to hit for the year, right? So you don't want to be stuck between, because you're trying to hire and there's 600 applicants to look through. You want to keep that ball rolling. So you want that agency, but again, like, you just don't want it to be a permanent fixture in your organization. You want it to be a temporary one that evolves and does different things to fill in the gaps that you have internally until you get to the stage, the budget, talent to fill those up and build that as you level up.
Fantastic. I think that's very essential for founders to get some guidance on. So thanks for sharing that. And I like that these answers that we're covering. I think they're answers that keep everyone happy. So we've touched on the marketers. They're happy that, hey, they're in demand. The agencies, there's a role for them. So in this ecosystem, there's a role for everyone at the right time, at the right place. Just to round things off, Narbe, because we have you for a few more minutes, but to round things off, one of the things that makes you unique is that you have both the VC and the PE perspectives and experiences. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but how do the two, it sounds like the metrics that you look at are very, very similar in terms of the marketing metrics. And it sounds like the qualitative stuff are also similar, but it sounds like on the PE side, you're looking for opportunities. So if their marketing isn't on point, you're okay with that because now it's an opportunity for you to go in and help them build that function. So you just talk more about that, about how those two, what do VCs look for, what do PEs look for? Because we probably have listeners here who are C stage, Series A, B, C stage, but then we might have some of the companies that are looking to exit. For each of those two groups, what are the different things? What are the differences in terms of what you're looking for?
Yeah, it might make sense for me to back up a bit and just tell the differences between the two. The venture capital, private equity itself is investing in private companies. What we call private equity in a normal lexicon is actually called a buyout or leveraged buyout. Venture capital is actually a part of the private equity class because it is investing in private companies. But that aside, what venture capital is that you have an investor that buys a minority stake in your company. They don't buy control. They can't tell you what to do. They can sit on the board and guide the company in a certain direction from a board strategic perspective, high level. But on a day-to-day basis, they're not running the company. On the private equity side, you're typically looking for ownership stake. You're looking for 50% plus. A lot of times you look for 100%. Sometimes the founders want to roll equity in. And so you keep giving 20, 25% and keep them going, but you're in control here. So on the stage of investment on the VC side, you're kind of targeting earlier stage companies that are often pre-revenue or with minimal earnings, but they have significant growth potential. So they're kind of early in the stage of maturity of a company. On the private equity side, your focus is more so on mature companies, established revenue, established profitability. From a VC perspective, your investment objective is high risk, high reward. You're aiming for an outsized return through exponential growth. So as a VC, we would always look at, is this going to be a 10 bagger, as in 10x? Am I going to make 10 times my money on this business by the time it gets to the exit? And an exit is anywhere between 9 to 10 years on average from founding, which is very different from what people think. I always used to joke around and say, like, how long does a Canadian company take? I'll ask you, David, how long does a Canadian company go on average from founding to exit?
Well, if it was my company, I would probably like to see something like 2 to 3 years.
Then the number is actually 9.6 years. So it takes about 10 years to go from founding to exit on average. And so that's Canadian companies. Now, what do you think US companies with all this capital and all this talent, how long do you think it takes from them from founding to exit? Canada's 9.6. What do you think the US is?
I'm going to guess they're faster. They're usually faster at some, we're faster at them at some things like hockey, but when it comes to the tech world and startup world and building businesses, they're a bit faster, and money moves faster there as well. So I'm going to guess 6-7 years.
9.2 years. So they have a 6-month advantage on us. This is PitchBook data that we pulled on our side. So they have a 6-month advantage on us than Canadians do. So it still takes a long time, right? So as a VC, you have to say, all right, this company is like, we're in year 3 of 10 on average. What does that look like? How do I get diluted? Where do I go? On the PE side, the investment objective is a bit different. We focus on steady, predictable returns. We focus on how we can improve it operationally, how we can financially engineer a better outcome through using debt. Control-wise, VCs, they typically take minority stakes, so they offer guidance. They don't have significant control, but they have restrictive covenants, which means that the company can't do certain things without their blessing. You can't go raise more money. You can't add debt. You can't go buy another company. You can't substantially change your business from the point in time where I invested without letting me know and giving me the veto right for that. In the PE side, it's often majority investment, greater operational, greater strategic control. VC's time horizon is long. They look for anywhere from a 5 to 10 year mark in terms of exit from founding. That's kind of the time frame that they're into. In the PE side, it's typically a bit shorter. They want to go in, take control, change it up, fix things, some stuff up, and then put it back into the market, which, again, like Defined Capital doesn't do. We hold on to our companies forever, but typical private equity, they would look for an exit. So when a VC investor is looking for a company, they're typically looking for companies that are innovative, they have a market potential, they're not there yet, but they can scale into it. Versus PEs are looking for more so operational efficiency. What kind of cash flows are you producing? What kind of financial leverage can you add to the business? It's more of a mature business that has an operating history than a VC investment, which is really early stage and hasn't really become what they need to become.
Very interesting. And so it sounds like on the VC side, earlier stage companies, sounds like marketing is essential for them, but it sounds like for later stage companies, as you mentioned earlier, they're still investable if they don't have the best marketing, but if they have very solid operations and cash flow coming in. On the PE side, just curious, because you mentioned earlier, you guys sometimes acquire companies, everything, they have a great product, great business. Sometimes there's opportunities for you guys to improve some things, to help them generate more value, more revenue. And you mentioned earlier that marketing is one of them. What do you guys do in those cases? Do you guys have, let's say, CMOs in your network where you pair them up with those companies, or do you just give them the cash to go and hire their own people, or are you guys involved in building that marketing leadership and function?
Yeah. So, and then I talk to my old VC buddies a lot about this because I say in the VC world, we kind of take for granted how well we know how these companies should run. Not necessarily they do run, but they should run. We know what you need on a sales function, on an account management function, on a marketing function, or to have a proper go-to-market strategy. When you look at the PE world, a lot of these companies are under optimized. Like there's still a lot that you can do. So you'll go into a business like the business that I bought here, the municipal software business I'm sitting at. The company was growing by 20-30% a year. Spent $0 on marketing, $0 on, there's no salespeople, there's no account management. So when we walked in, we're like, okay, well, you've done a great job growing just from word of mouth and customer referrals, but we need to double click on this marketing stuff and go to market stuff and actually create like a proper function. So for the first few months, all we did was voice of customer, understand what the customer likes, what it doesn't. We went to trade shows, figured them out. And then we said, okay, like what does our typical customer look like and what can we build around it? And then that's when you start understanding who you want to bring in. Because if you just brought someone in without really knowing the core issues that the company faces and what you should be focused on, that person would just be spinning their wheels. So I think it's up to like the founders, the C levels, in order to get in the weeds and understand like what is it we need from a go-to-market strategy before they go higher. And that goes then back to like the conversation we had. Do we rely on an agency to do this while we bring that person in? Or do we bring that person in and just let them build this thing out from scratch? It really depends on a case-by-case basis.
Interesting. Some of the marketing leaders listening might be wondering, because we've all heard of VC firms or PE firms sometimes through their networks referring certain marketing leaders or pairing them up. Do you guys have like a Rolodex of like, how does that work? Do you guys have like a Rolodex of your favorite marketing leaders? Where do you go to find those marketing leaders? And how does somebody get on that list?
Through my experience, and I'm always open to talking to anybody. So if anybody listening to this says, hey, I'd love to talk to Narbe and just know who he is, like I'm down to meet anybody. Really, I have like a Rolodex of folks that I've worked with in the past in marketing and sales that are true rock stars. And I'm always waiting for like that perfect eclipse where they're in the market and I'm in the market and I can bring them on board. But with great talent, you seldom have those open windows because they're typically overlapping their opportunities on top of each other. They're never in the market looking for something. They're always getting headhunted for something better and better and better. But those people are very helpful because they'll come in, either they take a vacation day or they're coming on their busy day and they'll just deep dive and help me out with understanding the business. And we also rely on consulting agencies as well. So we have this one individual that went to school with me as well, and he helps very large private equity businesses and their tech investments. And he resets their entire marketing functions every time they do an investment or an acquisition in order to get them to best in class. And he does it for very large companies. So a lot of times like they're matrix organizations, 100 million plus of revenue. So we take like a skinny down version of that, and we just try to implement it by ourselves to get the ball rolling. And then in the meantime, we're finding a leader to bring in there. So it's a mixture of friends of the firm, which we try to implant in, as well as a consulting agency that we're really close to that's best in class as well. And that kind of ties together for us. It's a band-aid for what we need in the long term, which is a true team and a true leader to move this thing forward.
Very interesting. And Narbe, I think it was really great for the marketing people to hear directly from you and have those two worlds come together, because obviously you guys are very important in a startup ecosystem. Marketers are very important as well, but those two components usually don't talk to each other that much. So this is really great for us to be able to have this chat with you and for these two sides to connect. You gave an open invitation to any marketing leaders who do want to chat with you to reach out if they want to. Where can they find you?
So you can find us at, so our website is www.definecapital.ca. You can email me anytime, narbe@definecapital.ca. I'd love to talk to anybody interesting. Like, I think the most fascinating thing about the world are people. Understanding people's history and where they got to and their journey is really cool, which is why I love being on this podcast, because talking to you before the podcast just seemed like you're really interested in people and what they bring to the picture. And I thought that was incredibly fascinating. Oh yeah, feel free to message me. We are now January 2025, so we're in the market for a growth marketing manager. So if you're interested in something like that, again, email me, narbe@definecapital.ca.
Amazing. And yeah, I mean, I appreciate the compliment, but yeah, if you enjoyed talking to me, I think you'll enjoy talking to a lot of marketers. They're usually like this. They're interested in people, exploring ideas, chatting. I always like talking to them. So, and you know what, Narbe, maybe we can add you to our Slack community, and perhaps we could do something there. Perhaps we could have a channel where VCs and PEs like yourselves can connect with marketers more directly. I think it's really great to bring these two worlds together. I think there's so much value to be generated from doing this, and I'm really glad you recognized that as well and took this time out of the holidays to come on and chat. It's been over an hour now, so lots more to talk about. But for anybody who does want to chat with you some more, I'll certainly continue chatting with you throughout the rest of this year. But for anybody else, perhaps join our Slack community and come to our event next month as well. Narbe will be a featured speaker, so you'll hear a lot more from him on this topic at that event. And yeah, Narbe, was really great to bring these two worlds together. So thanks so much for doing this, especially during the holidays. Just curious, some of the marketers might be wondering, because they are interested in people, like you said, what does a VC or PE firm leader do during the holidays? You guys, I hope you get some time off.
Definitely try to take some time off. I have 2 young kids at home, so that's kind of the core focus, is that we know we only have 10 Christmases together, that they really are truly buying into Christmas, and just being like the kids that we all were once upon a time. But I'm always just tempted to just grind it. Like, I love working. I love the tech ecosystem, especially in Toronto. And so it's really hard for me to unplug, but I kind of force myself to in the holidays to take advantage of it. But yeah, I mean, when everyone's asleep at night, I'm just right back on the grind, I read, I write, I learn. We're in an active investment right now. So it's just fun. It's just fun. I love it. I love the game.
That's amazing. Well, thanks again, Narbe, for making time for us. And we hope to see you around. And for anybody looking to connect to Narbe, it sounds like 2025 is going to be a big year for you. And there are opportunities for marketers, founders to connect with you. So thanks very much, Narbe, for coming on. Hope you enjoy the rest of your holidays as much as you can, while having fun with your passion a little bit as well. And thanks again, Narbe. And any final words for the audience?
I just want to say thank you, David, for the opportunity to be on the podcast. It's been awesome, and wishing you a very successful 2025 as well.
Thanks, Narbe. Okay, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.